I start by finding some of the main areas. I hold my brush in front and find where things intersect different parts of the viewfinder, and that tells me where on the canvas that thing might be. So this might be top of the book. I'm not sure yet, but I'm just gonna try some things. Great, so I have to figure out where this bird is, and the bird, the location that I want it to be, the lit side of it, is not in the center. It's kind of right here. It's coming across somewhere right there. It's the highest point in the painting. And somewhere right there. So I'm gonna start to think about, where is this bird? Where is the cup? Once I get a few things down, I don't have to hold my viewfinder up quite so much. And then I can just kind of go by my eye. But let's see, where is the cup? Cup is closer on this side than that side. Bird is here and has like something sticking out there. So just try to get an idea of where a few important points are. And then I can put those in. Okay, well, the angle of the book going back in space is kind of like that, and I'll just come straight across. Back there is a little bit angled down, and it will come across. So I can start to make sense of things, an idea where things are. Very loose though, my purpose here is not to have a beautiful drawing. My purpose is to give myself an idea of where stuff is in the scene relative. So I noticed that this edge kind of lines up the edge of that cup, and it's angled about like that. So the edge of the paper goes like that. Angle comes out like this. And this is the edge of the table. The edge of the table actually might, is that a little high? Yeah, it might be a little higher. Edge of the table, but it does come down just a little bit. Okay. So here's the black paper coming through. Here's the edge of the table. Here's the book coming around. I feel like the book angle is correct. Not totally. It's like it's going down too low here, so let me adjust it. Go up a little bit more. When it comes to drawing, I've been painting a lot of books, so I started to get used to painting them. Really comfortable with painting them, and I've also gotten really comfortable with using my ruler. It's not cheating. I don't know if I need it right now. I might pull it out later, but sometimes I will use a ruler for some of these really straight edges if I just feel like I'm struggling to keep a straight line with my hand alone. So, So I'm not just getting the objects, and I'm trying not to think too much. I mean, I am thinking a little bit objecty because I'm not filling in shapes so much, but I am trying to think about where objects show up in different places. I want to get certain key points, but the purpose is not to define the object so much as just to get a sense of what is where. And this is all cast shadow back here. cast shadow comes across there. Okay, I'm starting to get some pretty good things. When I step back, you see me stepping back, turning around, but I'm looking into a mirror at my painting, at my drawing, to see if there's anything that is standing out that is incorrect. And I'm constantly doing that. You'll constantly see me squinting and turning around and looking in the mirror to see it from the opposite direction. So I'm just gonna keep on moving along here and working out my drawing. I don't need this to be too detailed. I just want enough information to get to that point where I can start to see big shapes and light and shadow, and I know where on canvas these things are happening. So I'm just gonna keep on. I'm not just getting, like I said before, I'm not just getting shapes of objects, I'm getting shapes of shadows as well. So anywhere there's a shadow involved, I'm making sure to include it. I didn't finish my whole spiel about the mirror, but turn around and see it in the opposite direction, which just gives me a fresh perspective and it helps me see errors. So I know it's too much paint on that brush. I have to be careful about, this is important for anyone, but careful about how much Gamsol you have in your paint and how much paint, even at this stage, you don't want it to be a lot of paint. You want things to be nice and dry. You don't want a lot of stuff piling up on there. All right, something that I'm doing as I'm going through and going around is I'm checking it, and how I'm doing that is I'm glancing back and forth between my subject over there and my painting. So I'm going back and forth and I'm looking for things that feel incorrect. So I do notice that my bird actually, I think, is further over this way. My bird too far to the left. This is all light. So I have a line here, but this is all light stuff. So it's distracting me. Now I'm getting a little bit too much Gamsol on my canvas, so I'm going to make sure that I'm keeping it clean. Here's the edge of the bird. Here's the tail. This is the bird in light. Edge of the bird's head right there. And that's the edge of the bird. It comes down. And this edge of the bird is actually further up. This is the bottom of the bird. This cup, head comes down a little bit. Okay, that's better. Okay, now I think I have the shapes kind of sorted out here. I think this tail is coming out further than what it is in reality and what I want it to be. And this book actually moves in. I want this to sit a certain way on my canvas. The core part of this went too far this way. So I'm going to move the edges of my canvas just a little bit. I like that composition, much better. The next thing I do, which is pretty critical to success, is I will separate light from shadow. I'm not worried about dark versus light. I'm worried about what is lit, what is in the light versus what is not in the light. I'm not concerned about values at this point. I'm just going to separate light shapes from shadow shapes. And I'm going to do that by just filling in everywhere that I see something is not lit, something that's in shadow. I'm even going to go over some of the lines I've drawn, and this is going to give me another drawing gut check. So I'm going to start filling these guys in. There's going to be spots where it's uncertain, like right here, is some in light, some in shadow. I have to make a decision. I'm going to say that's shadow for now, and I'm going to fill it in. But just want to separate light from shadow. And I'm looking at big shapes. I'm not looking at details, so I'm not worried about highlights. I'm not worried about anything that is really small. I just want big shapes in here. So I'm gonna go around the whole painting. If you also notice, I kind of simplified this handle. The handle is detail, so I'm not worried too much about it. This is all shadow right here. I can allow myself to get a little bit more Gamsol on my brush because I want to fill in larger areas. You could even use a big brush if you want. I'm not. She could. Now, if you notice, this black paper, that's in light. It is not in shadow. It's dark. It's a dark thing in light. So I'm gonna leave it. Okay, I think that's most of my shadows. The next thing I do is I go around, so I fill them all in, and then I go around and I actually rub all that paint into the canvas. So that it creates this really beautiful light. It's kind of like a tone. Toning the canvas. And I love the way it looks. I think it's just beautiful. And it also helps with getting the paint, eliminating the unnecessarily thick paint. And now if you see, I'm going across the lines. I'm letting the lines of the drawing go and just allowing that to be beautiful, large shape. I could probably just fill this whole thing in for now, because it's detail. Anywhere that has light, I'm going to wipe out with my paper towel. So I'm using my paper towel almost like as a drawing instrument. I'm going to be wiping paint out to create those lit shapes, to make sure those lit shapes are defined. And then I'm coming back in. As I do that, I'll be coming back in with my brush and further defining some of these things. I love this part. It's one of my favorite parts of the process because it takes something that is really complex, and you start to see it simplified, and how just the power of light versus shadow. This is not value, it's light versus shadow. You see the power of it, and how you, like our brains start to see, like, we know this is a handle. Now this is a line, this is all lit over here. So I have these lines at the edge of the book, and when I'm painting later, I know that this is a dark part in the light and this is a light part in the light. So there is going to be an edge separated, but I'm going to leave that as just a line for now. I'm not going to fill anything in. I just want to know it's there, and I'm going to wipe it out and keep it pretty thin so that it's not drawing too much attention. Okay, now let me do the burn. Not this bird's gonna be satisfying. I think that this part of my painting is gonna be it's gonna be really important. So I do want to make sure that it is represented now at this point in my process. This is an edge, this is in the light, and everything surrounding it is in the light, but I still kind of want to know it's there. It's an important edge. And here, it's an important edge. I will let this edge be lost. This one here. But I do know that this bird casts a shadow onto the edge of the cup, and we'll connect it back here. So I do want to go ahead and represent that now. That's going to help the viewer understand space. Now this head, it's another one of those spots, like this edge right here. Another one of those spots where lights are meeting lights. And I think I'm gonna be better off, honestly, leaving these lines out, because these dark lines are just going to be distracting. So I'm tempted to let them just be lost for now. Maybe I'll hint at something, but I'm gonna focus on shadow, getting the shadow of the bird accurate. Shadows in the sky. Challenging. I'm gonna be carving out the negative space. So I'm adding information, taking information away. That's all I'm worried about. I like to keep this shadow shape area as thin and clean, consistent as I can. Sometimes I really like the way it turns out. In certain places I can choose to leave it. So what I've completed here is the first layer. I first sketch in a line drawing of my subject. Once I'm done with that and I have a sense for where everything's going to be on the canvas and I feel good about the locations of everything, then I create this really thin, big shape blocking of light versus shadow. So I'm not worried about value. I'm only worried about where I see things in light versus things in shadow. There are areas, like you see these lines here, where This all is in light, but I kept some of these lines available so that I could refer to where different surfaces change. So this is a dark thing in light, and this is a light thing in light. So there's gonna be a shape difference when I paint here. I don't want to be representing this dark object in light as a shadow. I wanna only represent shadows. So this is a dark object, but this is shadow, the shadow side of it. This is a light object, this is the shadow side of it. These are gonna be ultimately two different values. But now all I'm trying to do is create a very simplified view of this subject and the light and shadow that gives it form. And I know that I've accomplished that when I can stand back and look at this piece and I can see the form and the space happening with it. And I feel that, and I'm happy with it. And I know that I can now move